Hello and welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Development Council of the Town of Oakville. We have no regrets. Everybody is here, either in person or online. Council, do we have any declarations of conflict of interest? Madam Clerk, I see no declarations. Council, are you prepared to confirm the minutes of the previous Planning and Development Council meeting? Councilors Chinna and Councilor Shia, thank you. Is there any objection or change wanted? Madam Clerk, there's no objection or change, and the minutes are adopted. We have advisory committee minutes to approve and receive. Is there a mover and seconder? Councillor Longo and Councillor Chisholm, thank you. Any objection? Madam Clerk, there being none, the minutes are approved and received. We have a consent item, and this is and it's on consent because it's a return item. But we have a presentation from Andrew Hannaford, and we have delegations the clerk will call. And this is the 3006th line and 21 Dundas Street West application that features a new Shoppers. Councillor Shia, do you want to wait for the presentation on the rest of the procedure? Or
yes, I want to wait the presentation, and the delegation should be as well.
Sorry, what?
I want to wait the presentation, yes.
Delegation first.
The delegation first. And
He'll wait for the presentations
Yeah.
and the delegation.
Thank you. Okay, so
Thank you.
I'll call on you when we get there. Thank you. Mr. Hannaford, if you're here, we're interested and ready for your presentation, and we look forward to you sharing your information.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and councilors. My name is Andrew Hannaford. I'm an associate with MHBC Planning. I'm here on behalf of our clients, Daniels City Builder Corporation and Shoppers Realty Incorporated. Joining me is Melinda McCrory, a partner at MHBC, and we do want to start by saying that we support the recommendation for approval before council this evening, which is the result of 3 years of detailed review and consultation with town and regional staff. Next slide, please. At the April 20th meeting, this matter was deferred back to staff for further consultation with the applicant, focused on the proposed interim commercial building and its relationship to the housing to the north. Following that meeting, we met with the local councilors and town planning staff to discuss the interim commercial building and to clarify that the Shoppers Drug Mart is permitted as of right by the existing zoning. The application before you tonight is strictly to implement the zoning bylaw to permit the residential development envisioned by the town-approved secondary plan for this area. The proposed Shoppers Drug Mart has been considered for this site since 2018. Site plan approval was granted in 2018 and has since lapsed, and therefore a new site plan application is required. Our client has now filed that site plan application, and it's currently under review by town staff. It reflects a version of the plan that has undergone extensive consultation with town staff that commenced back in 2023. Procedurally, the concerns that were raised by the two local councilors, including the relationship of the building to the street, site access, and loading, are all site plan approval matters subject to that site plan approval application, rather than zoning matters which are before you tonight. The Shoppers Drug Mart team has worked with town staff for months, attending several meetings and making revisions to ensure that this retail use is appropriate for the context, and will continue to work with staff through that site plan approval process. Next slide, please. Planning for this site began nearly 20 years ago. In 2007, the town's original plan of subdivision identified this site for retail use that could occupy the entire property. In 2010, council approved the North Oakville East Secondary Plan, which continued to identify retail here while encouraging dense residential along Dundas with heights up to 12 stories. As mentioned, in 2018, Shoppers received site plan approval for a store on this site. While that approval lapsed, those retail permissions remain in place today in the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. The proposed zoning bylaw is actually more restrictive than what the secondary plan allows for our site. The policy framework permits 12 stories in height across the entire site, and the proposal seeks to implement a more thoughtful transition, including buildings with maximum heights of 8 stories across the site, 9 stories at the intersection of Dundas and 6th Line, townhouses at the rear, and standalone retail along Kading Trail as an interim use. The proposed design implements the planned density from the secondary plan, while also providing a thoughtful transition to those residential uses to the north. The residential component includes 3 buildings, totaling 542 units, approximately 1,400 square meters of retail, and 633 parking spaces. The proposed development implements the policy framework that has been planned by the town for 2 decades on this site. All technical studies have been thoroughly reviewed by staff, who are recommending approval on the basis that it implements the town's secondary plan, there are no undue impacts, and council and public comments have been appropriately addressed over the course of the last 3 years. Next slide, please. In the context of the current housing crisis, this bylaw is essential. It delivers 542 residential units where they've been planned by the town since 2010. It commits to delivering retail first, implementing much-needed walkable retail to serve area residents and their daily needs. The proposal implements the town's vision to provide for interim uses while long-term higher density uses are built out across the site. This application is the direct result of council-approved policies. It is not asking for more of the town. It simply implements town policy in a thoughtful and conservative proposal. We urge you to approve it this evening so that we can proceed to site plan approval. And thank you, and with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. So I have a question about this Shoppers one. So how this interim building realistically remain in the place before the phase 4 redevelopment occurred. So my following, if the market condition do not support the redevelopment, could this interim commercial building standing alone remain there?
Through the mayor, yes, it could. So the intent is that we did provide a phasing plan that we worked with town staff to prepare. The long-term vision, as identified in the secondary plan for this area, is dense residential along Dundas, as I said in the presentation. The interim retail use is permitted as of right. It's permitted right now in the zoning bylaw for the site. That first phase of the retail use, if the market doesn't pick up and the market doesn't demand that density in the future, it can remain there. It's being planned to be thoughtfully put there. It's been well planned to fit within the context and to operate properly for the foreseeable future. At the same time, we are planning for the inevitable case where the market does pick up and there is that demand again, that could, 10 years down the road, whenever the market picks up, be turned into high-density housing in accordance with the secondary plan as well, with retail at grade to still provide that function on the site.
Okay, so would you also tell me what's the reason why you cannot put the Shoppers into the mixed-use building along the Dundas?
Thank you, and through the mayor. I think you answered that already with the answer with market conditions. At this time, the intent is to move forward immediately through the site plan approval process for that Shoppers Drug Mart. Town policy as well as market conditions do dictate that you really want to put the density along Dundas, the primary corridor in this area first, to support transit and other investments that the town is doing along Dundas. The retail is there to serve the existing community to provide that walkable function, there is retail on Dundas, but it's less localized to this area, so it does provide an important role for this community. The only location for standalone retail that works within the context of a higher density development is that location at the corner of 6th Line and Keating Trail, and so that's why it's been put there at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Shia. Councillor Elgar?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Burton, I'm just trying to understand. So I thought when I read the report, it said that we are being asked to approve a zoning bylaw amendment now. Is that not correct? Are you saying we already have the zoning done? Maybe I misread the report. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Through the mayor, maybe I can clarify that for you. So the retail on this site is permitted in the current Dundas Urban Core zone that applies to the site. The site is actually split zoned, so the eastern portion is zoned Dundas Urban Core. The western zone is zoned future development, which requires a zoning bylaw amendment for any development on that portion of the site. What we are doing is applying the Dundas Urban Core zone to the entirety of the site with permissions for the 8 and 9 story residential. It's the retail, which is part of our application, which is already permitted in the zoning. So we're not applying for retail permissions on the site. We're applying for the residential permissions across the entirety of the site.
But we are asking to approve a zoning bylaw amendment, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, because you said we weren't. I thought I heard. I apologize. Maybe I misheard. So we're doing that before deferring everything to a site plan process is what you're trying to do, correct?
No, sorry. To be very clear, and through the mayor, The Shoppers Drug Mart, which is the single-story retail building at the corner of Shoppers and Kading, is subject to a site plan approval process. That is a separate process from the larger residential redevelopment, long-term mixed-use development of the broader site, which is what the zoning bylaw amendment before you tonight seeks to permit.
So somehow it all got, maybe it's just too big, but because we're definitely being asked for a zoning bylaw amendment now.
Correct.
Now, when we go back though, the interim commercial building relationship to the northern housing. They're asking, the applicant is preparing more detailed plans. This is a promise of future work, not a resolution. That's what's happening there. Like there's nothing definite here. It's a future plan. That's not good.
Maybe I can try to shed more light on this. There is an active site plan approval application for the retail, being that Shoppers Drug Mart at the corner of Kading and 6th, that is being reviewed by town staff. So there is a site plan and associated studies with town staff for review, which has been prepared in coordination with this broader plan for the residential. The reason why there is two is because the retail component does not require a zoning bylaw amendment to proceed. It can proceed straight through site plan. We've been working with staff, again, for many years to bring this to fruition, and town staff will be assessing that individual retail application on its merits through that active application. The zoning bylaw amendment tonight is coordinated with that retail site plan, but separate, and seeks to apply those residential permissions across the entirety of the site. So there's two active planning processes being played out at the same time. The residential, over the course of the last few years, zoning bylaw amendment, we've been working with town staff, we've submitted studies, and that's what town staff are recommending that council approve tonight.
So this is a promise of future work. There's not a resolution right now at all. Okay. Lighting and headlight impacts. The report mentions agreeing the Kading Trail access to limit vehicle headlights shining on the residential properties. Apparently that's not done yet. It's an identified problem, yet it remains unresolved at this stage, correct?
No, I wouldn't say that the way you're characterizing it is correct, Councillor, and through the mayor. So through the zoning bylaw amendment application, which is the subject of tonight's approval recommendation, we did submit traffic studies, lighting studies, all of the required technical studies to support the application before you. It's not a promise of future plans. It's a plan that has been before you and has been assessed by town staff. With regards to specific headlight concerns for residents along Kading, the way that traffic is intended to flow on the site is that there are two right-in, right-out accesses, one from Dundas and one from 6th Line. Because of the distances to the intersection of 6th Line and Dundas, the region of Halton does not allow a full moves intersection at those locations. So the only full moves intersection into this site is from Kading. So vehicles wishing to enter the Shoppers would turn left or right onto Kading Trail from 6th Line, then turn left into the subject lands. When they are leaving the site, they have the option of exiting onto Kading Trail if they're going to that neighborhood. In all likelihood, they'll be exiting right onto 6th Line into the remainder of the town or onto Dundas Street. So there is limited traffic leaving the site through the Kading Trail access, which is where you would have headlight concerns. The grading plan was submitted and reviewed by town staff for the Shoppers and for the residential components and deemed to have no impacts with that concern. It will continue to be studied through the site plan approval application, which, just like any application, always follows the zoning bylaw amendment stage. So it will be further assessed through that. But town staff did not raise any concerns with headlights into those units, and the majority of the traffic, including truck traffic, would not be exiting from that access.
But based on the report, it is still unresolved at this point, right?
I would defer to town staff, but I don't believe it to be unresolved, but it will be further assessed through the site plan.
Yeah, exactly. That's when it'll get resolved. Okay. Now, the construction management plan described as mandatory, but only through the site plan process after zoning is approved. Residents to the north have no guarantee of its contents before the zoning is locked in. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The zoning has to get locked in, right?
Through the mayor, that's correct, but that's also standard town practice. So through a zoning bylaw amendment application, you might prepare a high level, but it is always locked in through consultation with town staff through the site plan process. That's standard across most municipalities in Ontario.
I thank you very much for your answers, and I look forward to hearing from the residents' concerns. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Giddings?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, would it be possible to put your slide deck back up?
I believe so, yeah. If I could ask the clerks to put it back up.
There was a slide, I believe, that's the one right there, Councillor Elgar was referring to. So I see the Kading Trail, and on the far right side, that's the right out onto 6th.
That's correct.
So truck deliveries and so on, you mentioned that they wouldn't use Kading.
So truck traffic for the Shoppers Drug Mart will enter the site through Kading Trail. I don't know if you have the one slide before this with the interim site plan with the shoppers that you could put up. It might be more helpful. Sorry, I think it's back a few slides. There you go. Thank you. So trucks will turn onto the site via the access on Kading Trail, drive south back into the loading bay for the Shoppers Drug Mart, pull straight out, and exit the site via 6th line. That was done very intentionally to ensure that truck traffic is not proceeding through the residential neighborhood to the north. It's only accessing a couple of, it's not a very significant length, 40 meters maybe along Kading Trail where the trucks are traveling in, they turn into the site, and then they exit via 6th. That also ensures that they're not driving through the internal condominium roads for the future apartment buildings, because that's obviously not a very compatible use if you can avoid
That's
it.
the lower left side exiting to Dundas.
Correct. There's also, it's hard to tell on any of these slides, but there's a significant grade change across the site. It's quite a large site. So the driveway off of Dundas has a fair slope to it that it's not conducive to tractor trailers. With that said, there's only about 5 tractor trailers serving a typical Shoppers Drug Mart per week. The majority of the vehicles are smaller courier vans for Canada Post and bread delivery vans and so forth.
But when they go in daily or close to it, it's going to tie it up. All right, well, I believe Councillor Elgar had a question for staff as well. I'd like to hear back from at the appropriate time in terms of the traffic and through how it's going to be dealt with through site plan. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Staff, do you have, did you note a question and do you have an answer?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I believe the question was related to grading and headlight impacts. If I could, yeah. Okay, so as we work through the site plan application, we will get into greater detail with grading plans. There is an opportunity through the site plan to adjust grades, primarily to make sure that the site works and stormwater management works first and foremost, but there is an opportunity to manage the grades so that the impact on residents in those homes on the north side of Kading Trail are as mitigated as possible. And that's what we will explore through site plan, should the application be approved and we can advance the site plan application further.
All right, thank you. Councillor Giddings, is that the question and answer you were looking for?
That's part of it. The other one, my primary concern there was the traffic entering into a plaza and then exiting through the residential area, or the residential people coming in that way and going through. Just seems to be a lot of possibility for conflict when you've got shoppers and you've got a fair number of residences in there.
Great. Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question. So through the zoning bylaw amendment, we actually looked at the on-site circulations and turning movements. With this site, as Mr. Hannaford explained, Kading Trail is the access point for any large delivery vehicles coming in, and 6th line would be their egress. They would not be taking Dundas Street. There is, going to be residents in the future that might come in through Kading Trail, but if you're coming, southbound down 6th line, you live in, let's say, Building A or Building B, which is in the southwest corner of the site, you will primarily access that through 6th line, as it's just easier to navigate to that corner through that passageway. But when we did the analysis, and we will continue to do these analyses as the site plans progress, because it's a phased development, there will be more than one site plan application, all of these turning movements will be reassessed through updated TIS studies.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Councillor Hazlitt-Deal.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you very much for your presentation. Sounds like you've been on a journey, and I hope I don't make it more painful, but I do have a few questions. Is there another location that you can point to that Shoppers Drug Mart has dropped their retail space literally less than a baseball throw from somebody's front yard? Like, I'm looking for an example that would reflect that this works.
Sure, and thank you, and through the mayor. I think it's quite common, maybe not necessarily, I'm not as familiar with Oakville examples, but for example, in Hamilton, it is quite a common condition. Most major collector intersections have a Shoppers Drug Mart on them as a resident. A good example would be at the intersection of Concession Street and Upper Sherman, if I get that right. The Shoppers Drug Mart actually has laneway access from a rear lane from some of those residences, and they are directly abutting single detached residential as well as across the street from single detached residential. It works quite well, especially in a developing more urban setting, as is Dundas and intended for Dundas, where residents primarily in that location do walk to the Shoppers Drug Mart, and it becomes really a small-scale neighborhood retail use. It's also a drugstore. It's also a Canada Post, and it really does serve that daily need of residents. I think that's also why you see, and I don't work for Loblaws, I'm just a planning consultant, but I think that's part of the primary function that they're going for, is to provide that very small scale, local, serving their existing immediate community, so that you don't have to get into a car to drive down Dundas, and while also allowing for that use. So we've been trying to be very intentional with how it was placed on the site. The original 2018 approval had it located further south towards the intersection of Dundas and 6th. The challenge with that is there's a significant grade. So what you have is a large retaining wall without direct access from the sidewalk, where if you are coming from the south or the east, you would have to essentially drive or walk a very circuitous route around the site to get to it, especially if you're not able to walk and you can't access steep stairs up a retaining wall. So that location also didn't work very well from a truck traffic perspective. So we believe that this does that better. This is also the result of a lot of work with town staff, where what we heard from town staff back in 2018 with that approval was that while they supported it and we did receive site plan approval, what they ultimately wanted was for the North Oakville East secondary plan to be implemented, which is mixed use, high density development that supports transit, that supports walkable communities, which is really the vision for North Oakville. And we do believe, and I think town staff believe, that this gets us a lot more of the way there by placing the retail closer to the residents and placing the density and the residential units along Dundas. So I hope I answered that question sufficiently.
But given the timing of all of this, would the residents that bought on Kading Trail and across the street, would they have had full knowledge that this is what was going to be there?
They should have. I can't speak to what they did or did not know, but as I said, the original draft plan of subdivision envisioned entirely low-scale retail across this site as early as 2009. And I believe the majority of the homes developed after that period, or would have been developed in around the same time that it's the same draft plan of subdivision. The homes immediately to the north are the same draft plan of subdivision that approved the retail back in 2009. So I would hope that they were informed when they made those purchases that this was the intended use. It has been available publicly through the town's zoning bylaw as an approved use. It is in the town North Oakville East secondary plan, again, going back to 2009. So I think it's been well documented that retail was planned for this site for going on 15, 16 years now.
Okay, thank you for some of that detail. Further to Councillor Shee's question, I'm not fully satisfied with your response about that the Shoppers really couldn't go in the base of a building on Dundas, and that the reason is market conditions. I mean, it logically makes a lot more sense for the broader development and for these folks who probably don't read secondary plans before they purchase this. Like, is there any other rationale? I mean, I've heard the grade,
Yes.
but it seems to make a lot more sense to be in a different location.
Understood. And through the mayor, so there's a few reasons why the Shoppers is located where it is. As we mentioned, truck traffic is obviously a very large concern on this site. It is for us as well, in both having future residents on the site and for the operators of the Shoppers Drug Mart long term. If we were to place retail elsewhere on the site, the tractor trailers and loading operations would have to come further into the site. The site, as I mentioned, has quite significant grading challenges on it. You can see that immediately to the west of us with those more recent apartment buildings where they have actually access from Dundas goes directly into the underground garage in some cases because of the significant grade challenges. So you could not safely have a full-size tractor trailer turn into the site up a significant grade and make a sharp right turn into the site. It just logically and safely doesn't function very well. And the town transportation staff may be able to speak more to that. By placing it at the northeast corner, we minimize disruption of, again, only 5 to 7 tractor trailers per week coming into the site and going past existing residential homes. They're passing 6 to 8 existing homes, turning into the site, and they cannot exit back towards those homes. They have to exit onto a regional arterial roadway, and they're only accessing that top corner. So it does really reduce the impact and the safety and the noise impacts of those loading operations, which are essential for retail to operate. The site also is the largest at the northeast corner. It's obviously constrained by Kading Pond, from which it wraps around. So we've been trying to navigate all of that while being able to implement the secondary plan, which does plan for that higher density. With regards to starting immediately with a retail at the base of a mixed-use apartment building, I think the reason why you see it as an interim use right now is that the market currently does not support that to proceed as phase one. Phase one is a standalone retail component, partially because it's permitted as a right and not, regardless of whether this zoning bylaw is approved tonight or not, the Shoppers is permitted on the site. But as we move forward, we did want to protect for and plan for what the secondary plan ultimately calls for, which is that mixed-use function. And so this plan, and we work very closely with town staff to ensure that this protects for that possibility in that phase 4 when market conditions and time allows for that density to build out to support that. So that's where we are today.
Okay, thanks very much. I do have a question for town staff.
You can ask it.
Okay. Was there any consideration of it being a one-way coming in? So Kading, you turn in, it becomes a one-way. So we're not encouraging somebody. I get the trucks. I've heard it. The trucks are going to go the other way. But if residents drove there, to encourage them to go out the other way, so that the lights and that friction between residential and retail is limited.
Yes, through you, Mayor. So the TIS studies that were reviewed by town staff, I do not think that they ever analyzed that driveway access as being one way. It was always a two-way egress, if we're talking the ingress-egress along Kading Trail.
Okay. Well, I would suggest that somebody might consider that when people put their life savings into a home. I think we have to go above and beyond to try and find some way to really truly minimize the impact. And when I look at some of the things that aren't still resolved, albeit I hear you that it's in progress, and I do respect that you've been working hard on it. I mean, I have, for example, in my ward, somebody got to put up a sign on their building that stares right into the neighborhood. It shouldn't have been approved. It shouldn't have been agreed to. And so I get worried, not because I don't think staff try to be diligent, but these are things that are front and center now, that people are calling out saying, well, please don't make sure that there's lights. The Shoppers sign is staring at us, or that the lights are coming at us when people turn out. Can we have some additional landscaping to buffer? I think it would give people a lot more confidence that we're considering their needs in this decision. But those are my comments.
Thank you, Councillor, for your questions and comments. Councillor Nanda for first time. Councillor Elgar, it's your second, so you'll wait till she's had her go. Councillor Nanda.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you for the presentation. Actually, just additional clarification on what my colleague just said earlier. For the residents that moved there on Kading Trail in 2010, and we were saying that they would or should have known what was going across the street. Can you clarify, though, that originally the Shoppers was supposed to actually be on the corner of 6th Line and Dundas and not directly in front of them?
Through the mayor, the approval in 2018 was for a Shoppers Drug Mart at the corner of Dundas and 6th. However, in 2009, the draft plan of subdivision approved by the town permitted retail across the entirety of the subject lands, so the entire eastern parcel. So you could have had, and it was planned to only permit retail across the entire block.
So realistically, when the residents moved in, the only thing that was supposed to go across the street was retail and not condos or not dwelling units. So it would differ in terms of traffic and what would have gone into, and where, if it was commercial, that where the entrance would have actually been.
So through the mayor, you would have likely seen the same results of a loading study on the site because of the restrictions on regional roads being Dundas and 6th and the proximity of the subject lands to that intersection, and to accommodate turning lanes and so forth. Truck traffic is largely required to be accessed via Kading Trail, which is why you see it there today. In 2009, the subject lands were approved for a draft plan of subdivision to permit retail, that's correct. Shortly following that, in 2010, I believe, the town of Oakville, including Oakville Council, approved the North Oakville East secondary plan, which planned for mixed-use residential and retail in the subject lands, so immediately thereafter. That has been carried forward for about 16 years now. It's long-standing permissions. The application before you today, as I said, there's two parcels. So the eastern parcel, where the Shoppers is located, permits retail currently on the site. It also permits residential. The western parcel, which is the one that only has frontage onto Dundas, does not permit anything. It's future development. It's basically a holding zone until an application comes forward. You go through a zoning bylaw amendment, and those provisions are brought forward. So that's what this application tonight before you is doing. It is applying the Dundas Urban Core Zone provisions to both parcels. Retail, as I mentioned, is already permitted on the eastern parcel, as is the provisions that Shoppers are going through the site plan approval for. So with respect to what residents would or wouldn't have known, obviously I can't speak to what their realtors or other resources they would have used when they purchased their homes, and I'm not discounting the fact that they may not know or they may be surprised that this is coming forward, but it has been in place for 16 years now on the site.
But just going back to when originally in 2018 it was approved on the corner of Dundas and 6th Line, what was adjacent to that? Like, what was fronting the townhouses when the Shoppers was originally approved for the corner?
It would be identified as future development, which would permit residential, as was permitted within the secondary plan at the time.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Burton.
Thank you, Councillor Nanda. Would it have also still permitted retail if I was following your, thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Elgar.
Thank you. Through you, member, to member staff, regarding the photometric plan, I didn't hear the answer I was hoping to get, and I just wondered if maybe I missed it. Can the staff agree that it would be a 0.0 lux at this before anything could happen? Or is that, the wording didn't say that. It said we're still looking at it or something. Well, I want to make sure there's a grading solution to address the vehicle headlight impacts. That hasn't been designed, as I understand, yet. For the Kading Trail, it's not been graded. So I just want to get confirmation. Can we guarantee it'll be 0.0, or is that still a question?
So through you, Mayor, through the site plan application, photometric plans are reviewed and analyzed by staff. The objective is to have 0.0 at the lot line to maintain limited light spill into the right-of-ways. Cars and headlights are not part of a photometric plan. A photometric plan looks at lights that are on buildings or stanchions in a parking lot, and there are solutions. So if you have a light on a building that is close to a property line, like this case, you would put a blocker plate on part of the light, and that would direct the light downwards and not across the street, if you will. I'm not sure if that quite answers the councillor's comment, but
I think it does a pretty good job of addressing my concern. It does not have anything to do with headlights of cars, is what I've just heard. Is that correct?
through Mayor, that is correct.
Wow. Well, that's something I didn't know before because I thought the grading was going to prevent that, but I appreciate the answer. I hope the people that live there know that. Now, can you also advise me, were the residents of Kading Trail directly notified of this June 1 meeting tonight?
Through you, Mayor, notice was sent out in accordance with the town's policy
And that, which is?
that if you have previously participated or provided written comments through the application, you would have received notice.
But if you just live there and have an address there, no one knows, right?
Through you, Mayor, I can't confirm. I do not know the specific details of legislative coordination.
Wait a minute. Just so everybody understands. What you're saying is if you have if you had been involved in this application, is that what you're saying? And you have made comments, then you would have known about the meeting tonight. But how would if I just lived there and hadn't made a comment on anything, would I know? Would I have been given a piece of paper in my mail?
Through you, Mayor, I do not know the correct answer to that question. That gets dealt with through our legislative coordination.
Who would know that tonight?
Through you, Mayor Burton, if I can assist. When we send out notice as part of a complete application as well as through the public meeting, the notice is given based on council's policy of 240 meters. The other requirement is that there has to be a sign posted on every street frontage. So in this case, there would be 3 signs on the property identifying that there is an application with the municipality. There's a code on that sign which takes you to the website, and we keep that website updated in terms of when reports are going to be before council. As Mr. Westerhoff is saying, those who have registered with the municipality who have provided comment either verbally or through written submissions, then we provide a courtesy notice, which is again our policy, to ensure that they are aware that there is a recommendation report going to council. In that sense, we also follow the regulations that are in the Act, which does not require that notice being given out unless it's a statutory meeting. So we provide the courtesy and we ensure that the signs are on the property notifying of when there's a public meeting.
I thank you so much for that. I just need clarity because I keep hearing about it afterwards. Well, we didn't know about it. So thanks very much, Kate. I'm through, Mayor Burton.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Mr. Hannaford, thank you for your patience, and because I made you stand there for quite a long time unnecessarily, I apologize. I'll now turn to the clerk and ask the clerk to call the delegations. We have registered delegations on this file.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. The first delegation is Julia Leo.
Ms. Leo, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Hello, good evening. By the way, I was not notified about this meeting. I did my own research, and I'm grateful that I can present here. Thank you very much. So my name is Julia Leo, and I'm a resident of 50 Kading Trail, directly beside the proposed development site. And my presentation focuses mainly on how this project, if not modified, will affect the quality of life of the existing residents living immediately adjacent to the site. Next slide, please. So this is a 50 Kading Trail building. It's a 6-story condominium containing 114 units. The building is home for a diverse community of seniors, families with children, young professionals, and many residents chose this location for its natural sunlight, open view, and welcoming residential character. Approximately 30% of the units have southeast-facing windows and balconies that would be directly affected by the proposed construction. For these residents, the proposed building would become dominant present immediately outside their homes, fundamentally changing the environment they enjoy today. Behind every unit are residents who have invested in this community and who will live with the long-term consequences of how this development is ultimately designed and approved. Next slide, please. One of the greatest concerns is extremely close proximity of the proposed building to the existing residential units of 50 Keating Trail. So the white building behind the construction is 50 Keating Trail. It's a 6-story building. And so the image illustrates how close the proposed building A, which is on this picture, would be to existing residential units and balconies. Next slide, please. The site plan further illustrates that proposed building A would be located only 8.71 meters from the existing condominium building 50 Keating Trail. This level of proximity raises serious concerns and will significantly affect the daily living experience of existing residents. As this separation At this separation distance, residents are concerned about multiple impacts occurring simultaneously. These include reduced sunlight, loss of privacy, increased noise, and overall effect on residential comfort and enjoyment of their homes. Next, please. Next one, please. So the concerns are not one single issue, but the cumulative effect of all these impacts together. Combined, these issues will be significantly, they will alter the living experience of existing residents. Next. Livability is one of the primary concerns raised by the residents. Many balconies and windows will directly face neighboring residential units only short distance away. The close spacing between buildings will reduce openness and create more confined living environment, affecting both comfort and enjoyment of homes. Due to our building facing southeast, the units currently receive most of their natural sunlight during the morning and early part of the day. The proposed building will significantly reduce this important source of natural light. And we're particularly concerned about winter conditions when the daylight is already limited. Next, please. And next concern is parking and loading activity. This image highlights the location of loading area, parking, entrance, drop-off loops, and internal traffic circulation. These activities would occur immediately adjacent to the existing residential unit at 50 Keating Trail, as you see on this picture. Residents are concerned about increased noise from deliveries, garbage collection, vehicle movements, loading activities, and daily traffic. Because the buildings are located so close together, noise will be more noticeable near windows and balconies and may reduce quiet enjoyment of homes. Next, please. This area already experiencing significant intensification. Residents are concerned about increasing traffic congestion, road safety, infrastructure capacity, and cumulative effect of multiple developments occurring in this area. These broader community impacts should be considered alongside the site-specific concerns. Next. As density increases, access to green space becomes increasingly important. Residents would welcome additional walking areas, landscaping, seating, and public space around Keating Trail. Oakville's vision is to be a vibrant and livable community for all. While growth and intensification are important, livability should remain at the heart of planning decisions. This includes protecting green space, access to natural light, walkability, residential comfort, and the overall well-being of both current and future residents. Planning decisions should consider not only growth objectives, but also how development will affect the people who already live and contribute to the community. So I respectfully ask Council to reconsider the scale and layout of the proposal, particularly the design and placement of buildings A and B adjacent to existing residential building at 50 Keating Trail. I also ask Council to consider improved buffering and landscaping, preservation and enhancement of green space, and stronger protection of residential livability for existing residents. I believe thoughtful and balanced planning can support growth while also protecting the quality of life of current and future residents. Next, please. So the concerns presented today are shared by many residents. These signatures demonstrate that the issues raised are not isolated concerns, but reflect the views of numerous residents who are affected by this proposal. Next, please. So I would like to acknowledge the residents who took the time to review the proposal and express their concerns. Their participation reflects the importance of this issue to the surrounding community. And next one. So the comments received consistently identify similar themes: proximity, sunlight, privacy, noise, traffic, lack of green space, and overall quality of life. I would like Council to consider these concerns as a part of its evaluation of the application. The last one. In closing, residents are not asking Council to stop growth. Residents are asking for growth that is compatible with existing community and respectful of people who already live there. I respectfully request that Council reconsider the current design, specifically placements of buildings A and B, and seek a solution that better balances intensification with residential livability. Thank you for your time, consideration, and service to Oakville community.
Thank you very much for your information and the preparation that you put into it. Questions, Council?
Any questions?
Councillor Navnanda?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation. Just a quick question. How would you currently describe the traffic conditions on Keating Trail around your development?
It's the traffic during the busy hours is very difficult to get into our building because when we're going from the west, we have to turn on 6th line and it's busy. So we have to wait for a few lights to change. Basically, morning going to work is busy, coming from work is busy. During the day is more or less okay.
Okay. So you still consider a pretty busy road?
It is a busy, Dundas is a busy road, yes.
Dundas, but Keating Trail?
Oh, Keating Trail, it is busy because there's so many car parks along the Keating Trail.
That's what, yeah.
It is very busy.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I had a couple of quick questions for you. You had a couple questions for you. So you said you didn't receive notice, but how did you find out about the meeting tonight?
I was monitoring the meetings and just found that you.
So you knew about the development because of the signs?
I knew about the development because of the sign. The signs were there for a year maybe or more.
Okay, so you were aware that there was
Yes.
a development application.
Yes.
Okay, and then you had 2 or 3 slides of a petition. Were those all people within your building?
Building at 50 Keating Trail and 95 Dundas Street West.
Adjacent, okay. And so was that distributed within the building then somehow?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, I
thanks.
wanted to reach out to the Keating Trail, the houses and townhouses, but I didn't have time because I had only 1 week to prepare.
That's fine. Thank you very much for that. And the last question I had for you is, you had your final slide. Was that an AI-generated garden
It's a
picture?
dream, yes.
Okay, thank you. It was a dream. Very good. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Thank you, ma'am. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Esther Huang, the next delegation.
Welcome, Ms. Huang. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you. Good evening, mayors and members of the council. My name is Esther Huang. I am a homeowner on Janice Drive. If don't know where that is, it's a road connected to Kading Trail and directly across from the proposed zoning bylaw amendment site. So several years ago, my family decided to move to Oakville, and we specifically chose this community because it's a family-friendly atmosphere and its close proximity to Isaac Park and nearby schools. And as a parents of the 3 children, one of the things we value most was the ability for our children to walk to the park, into the nearby parks and playgrounds and schools in a safe and a welcoming environment. And today, my children regularly go to the park with their friends, and as a mother, that gives me a peace of mind. And then, by the way, when they go to the park, they usually go and turn to Kading Trail and then go to the park on Isaac Park. And that's why I'm here tonight. Why I understand that Oakville needs to grow and evolve, and I support responsible growth. But I'm also concerned about the impact this proposed development may have on the neighborhood that so many families chose to call home. And we already had a lot of discussion about impacting on the neighborhoods. So my first concern is traffic and safety, which you already discussed about the busyness of Kading Trail. So as I go to work, I turn to Kading Trail every day, and a lot of times I had to wait on that stop sign to make sure there's no cars coming, to make sure it's safe to turn. And I'm also concerned about the increased vehicle traffic associated with the proposed development. More vehicles, especially talking about trucks entering, and will increase congestion and create additional safety risk for children and families who walk or bike to nearby parks, schools, and community spaces every day. And my second concern is parking. Even today, on my street alone, there are a lot of parking. Street parkings are limited, and there are so many families have more than 2 cars because some of the families have turned into the basement as a rental, and then they are increased parking needs. So with this proposed development, parking can be more challenging. And when my brother visits me, he has to park far away so that he can, park not on our street because there's not enough parking, and to walk to our house. And with this development, my concern would be that it would put further pressure on the already constrained parking situation in the neighborhood. And my third concern is about neighborhood density. Residents chose this community because of the balance between homes, green space, roads, parks, and the community amenities. And I hope council will carefully consider whether this proposed density is appropriate for the surrounding neighborhoods and whether existing infrastructure can adequately support the additional demand. And just to add on comment is that I am a realtor myself, and I know those homes on Kading Trails are averaging more than $1 million. So I know how much people are putting their savings to buy a home, which now going to be impacted by this development. And then finally, I would also like to make a comment about to better understand the need for this Shopper Drug Mart. I did a Google search today, and from this site to the next nearby Shopper Drug Mart on Dundas and Yagawa is less than 3 kilometers away, 2.8 to be exact. So I would like to really appreciate clarification on how this proposed addresses unmet community needs, because it's another Shopper Drug Mart is quite close, and how it complements rather than duplicates services already available to local residents. So in summary, I respectfully ask Council and Mayor and Councilor to ensure that growth is balanced with safety, livability, and quality of life for existing residents and families. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Let me just check my screen. Thank you very much. Councillor Shia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Huang. Thank you for the delegate. So my question is about the last comments about the needs of the community. So for the shoppers one, so you said there's very close by.
That's right.
So there's no need for the shoppers for the neighborhood.
Because, as I said, the next Shopper Drug Mart is on Dundas and Yagawa, okay? So in that plaza there's Food Basic, there's Dollars Rama, there is the Shopper Drug Mart. So as a resident myself, I'm not going for grocery shopping, I will usually make stops on all those commercial places, right? So I don't really see a need for Shopper Drug Mart that's within walkable distance, because I often won't just go to Shoppers for one thing, but we're doing multiple errands. And then just also add on to is on Dundas and Yagawa on the other side of it, there is a Fortino there in that commercial that we will often go there to shop as well.
Okay, I see. So you rather, for the neighborhood, so you'd rather have a grocery store than the shoppers?
I would say that I feel like the close proximity to, even to add on to Walmart on Upper Town location, Walmart and Superstore, and we have Fortini on the other side. There is plenty of commercial space for residents in our neighborhood to shop and meet our needs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Ms. Wah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is there anybody else here with information for council who would like to share their information on this matter? All right, I'll confine the matter to table. Councillor, we've got competing hands going on here. Councillor Haslett-Thiel, I think, has won the foot race.
Thank you. I just have two follow-ups. One is, can you tell us what the community benefits are for this property or for this project?
Through you, Mayor, to the councillor, the community benefits would be the community benefits charge that's applied at the time of building permit.
Okay. And do you know what the ratio of green space being provided is?
Through you, Mayor, I do not know what that ratio is off the top of my head.
Is the, just as a follow-up, is that amenity that's shown on the drawing, we don't know the scale of it at all?
Through you, Mayor, I would have to look at the site plan drawing in greater detail and give you that number. And I can do that, just not right now.
Okay, thanks very much. One of my struggles with this is it sounds like staff have been actually struggling with it because it wouldn't have taken that long to get here if it was in the perfect spot. And I'm wondering, is there an option for you to come back and confirm that all of these concerns that have been raised that have been classified as site plan have been addressed?
Through you, Mayor, I would disagree that staff have been struggling with this application. There has been a lot of sort of different chatter around what this application is. As Mr. Hannaford described in his presentation, a one-story commercial building is permitted on the subject property. These lands are split zoned, H5 DUC with a special provision 1, which dates back to the inception of NOESP and future development. And what this application is doing is trying to rezone that future development land while basically bringing in line the existing permissions on that already zoned property and consolidating them under one clean zoning bylaw, but also zoning provision with these site-specific provisions to enable the development as it's been proposed. The time challenges is ultimately just comes down to the preparation of studies. And to be perfectly frank, we spent a lot of time, transportation engineering staff and the consultants, the applicant's consulting engineer, in working on understanding what those impacts on that local road network are and ensuring that there are no unacceptable impacts on the local road network. And we did that through, doing a TIS addendum and then the sensitivity analysis. And then through each subsequent site plan as they progress through the phase development, like I previously mentioned, new site plan or new TIS addendums will be prepared that respond to the current basically loading and the current development in the surrounding area, right? So as it progresses throughout its lifetime, the TISs will be updated to reflect real-time information and data.
Well, thank you for that additional information. On table 3 of the report, it does delineate what phase 2, 3, and 4 are. Was there consideration when you were looking at the size of those units to encourage something perhaps a little bigger?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. As the development progresses and as market conditions, because market conditions for apartments are generally soft right now, as market conditions rebound and there is a drive for these units, these actual units and the distribution of them may change and respond to the market conditions in order to move those units. What's presented here on this table is what's the applicants provided in their detailed breakdown of their application, and I've done so for you as well to better understand what is the allocation each way. And as the site plan progresses, and I'm sure the applicant is here understanding what you're saying today, that we can explore opportunities to increase, let's say, the 2 beds or the 1 bed plus den in comparative to the studios. But this is what has been brought forward with the application today. That's not to say it won't change in the future.
So my last question is, the FSI is supposed to be 2.5. You're proposing we accept 2.9. Why?
Through you, Mayor, the zoning bylaw introduces a maximum FSI of 3.0. Ultimately, what that does is it provides a level of certainty to council and members of the public that this is the maximum floor space index that can go on this site. The increase that's required, this 3.0, is only triggered once phase 4 comes to fruition and that 1-story commercial building is redeveloped. And ultimately, by increasing that FSI to 3.0 rather than the 2.5 as it is today, it builds in this flexibility to respond to these market conditions and potentially provide larger units, which would increase the FSI.
Thank you for your explanation.
Thank you, Councillor Hazathil. Councillor Shia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to thank staff and the applicant and the residents who have participated throughout this process. So while I recognize that staff have been conclude the proposal, confirm applicable planning policies, I still remain concerned about whether this is the right development for this particular narrow site. We got many emails, phone calls from our residents. They are not satisfied with the development. The proposal would automatically bring almost 700 units to a relative this constrained parcel of land. The residents and I continue to have concerns regarding density, traffic impacts, site circulation, parking demand, and overall compatibility of the development with existing home alongside the Keating Trail or other neighborhoods. So growth is important, but it must be balanced with the livability and the compatibility for existing residents. At this time, I'm not satisfied with those concerns have been raised by the residents. For these reasons, I will not be supporting this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shia. Councillor Chisholm?
Thank you, Worship. Through you, Your Worship, to the developer or consultant, with respect to what is the square footage, the size of the drug market? What's it called? I lost my train of thought there. Shoppers Drug Mart. What's the square footage of that?
Sorry, one moment as I just grab my notes here. The single-story Shoppers Drug Mart, one moment, is 1,393 square meters. I apologize, I don't have a square footage.
Okay, so let's look at this so I would assume that's a full-fledged grocery store too, because I see a lot of these Shopper Drug Mart are having a full-fledged grocery side of it. Is that included in this building?
So through the mayor, this would be a relatively small Shoppers Drug Mart compared to the typical Shoppers Drug Mart location as a result, again, of the site constraints. I apologize, I don't know the exact figure of a typical Shoppers, but through discussions with Shoppers, it would have a grocery component, but it would be somewhat smaller just due to the limited size of the building.
Okay. And the one resident was put out the distance between the development and the residential. I think it was I think I converted it to feet, or 28 feet different separation. Is that a correct measurement?
Through the mayor, so there's a bit more nuance to that measurement. So towards the existing Mattamy buildings to the north, to the third story, there's a 3-story component of the building. I don't know if the site plan can be put up, but there's a 3-story component of the building that is directly adjacent to the property line. It is set back 8.71 meters. The actual residential building that goes the full 8 stories is set back 16.08, so it's double. So there's a 3-story portion that's 8 meters, and then the 8-story is 16 meters, which is in line with Oakville's mid-rise separation criteria and quite standard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chisholm. Councillor Nanda.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you again for bringing the application forward, and thank you to our staff. I am, however, in agreement with my council colleague saying that I will not be supporting this recommendation at this point. While we recognize the need for housing and the importance for planning and growth, there are significant concerns regarding the scale and intensity of the proposal and the impact it will have on the surrounding community. A key concern raised by residents relates to compatibility of the development with the surrounding neighborhood and the additional pressure it will place on local infrastructure, traffic movements, and community amenities. In particular, residents have voiced concerns about the impacts on Kading Trail, including increased traffic, safety considerations, and overall character of the area. The proposed development includes future access and development phases that directly interface with Kading Trail. And so with that, we believe the council must carefully consider the feedback received from residents who will be directly affected by this development. Growth must be balanced with livability, infrastructure capacity, and community acceptance. So based on the concerns that were raised from several residents in the area and impacts on Kading Trail, I'm unable to support the recommendation before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nanda. Councillor O'Meara.
Thank you. Just a question to staff. I mean, so we've recommended this. It's a housekeeping, from what I understand, Colin saying it's a housekeeping sort of consolidation of bylaws here. And this might be a question for legal. So, you know, we obviously have residents who don't want this to be built, which is nothing new in the town. What happens when we say no to this? What's the next steps legally that are now going to avail themselves to the applicant, or what's the next path after this if council says no?
Ms. Chandra, I think that might be for you, and it's, I think, entirely in order to share with the public what the given legal process is. That's surely no secret.
Through you, Mayor Burton, to Councillor O'Meara, the applicant is already in a position to file an appeal. The time frame for council to make a decision has already passed, and I understand they're waiting for the decision this evening. So they would be in a position to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal.
And it was the applicants working with staff to try and come to a staff supportive recommendation that would have been their hope to avoid going through a legal process. That's why they have waited for this. Was that a correct statement?
Well, Councillor, we can ask the applicant's consultant to answer that rather than staff to speculate. Mr. Hannaford?
Thank you, Councillor, and to the Mayor. It is correct that the window from which we could file an appeal, it has passed. We can still file an appeal. I guess, sorry, could you just repeat that question to ensure I answer it as completely as I can?
I guess my question was that you were waiting, you didn't file your appeal as soon as the timeline was over because you thought it best to work with the town and work with town staff to come to something that they could recommend, and council would take our staff's opinion and you could avoid legal costs, which both sides, the town and the applicant, have to spend in order to thrash this out in the courts.
Thank you, Councillor, and to the Mayor. I would say that it's important to clarify, we do have staff support, and we did have staff support at the initial council meeting. Town staff do recommend approval of our application. Again, we are simply implementing council-approved policy on this site. We are not seeking more. We are not seeking to get things that we are not permitted within the town's official plan. We're seeking to implement the town's existing official plan. The reason for the delay was the hope that we could work with the two local councillors to come to an agreement where a council are satisfied that they can trust a town staff who are recommending approval, and that we can move forward without needing to go through a tribunal process. With that said, we are quite confident that we are implementing town policy, that our application is good planning and in line with all of the recommendations of your staff. And so we would proceed accordingly if council chose to not approve the application tonight.
Great. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
So with that, Your Worship, I mean, we have to be consistent as a council. Either we support our town policies or we don't. We can't have one side of the town where we're asking people to adhere to town policy, and then another one where we say, you've met town policy, and we still don't like it. I mean, I will support the staff's recommendation just for consistency alone. Like we have to try and be consistent in what we're doing here. I appreciate the residents' concerns, and I think Colin did an incredible job at emphasizing we still have work to do with site plan and dealing with this stuff. We have done a lot of work on this. I think we should all be consistent in what we're asking of our town policies, and we all get the opportunity to revisit our town policies. So I'll be supporting staff's recommendation on this. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor O'Meara. Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Worship. Just to go on Councillor Mayor's comments, I would agree with that. I think where the due diligence will be is the site plan and making sure we have a good transition with that area. With respect to meeting all the policies and so forth in general, I've been on council long enough. When we go to Ontario Lands Tribunal, our success rate is very, very low. Knowing full well that we have the support of staff, and we're in support of all the policies and bylaws that we have that are within this. Yes, I totally agree that sometimes the residents don't like the issues with closeness and so forth, and light and so forth. I know we've had that challenge in other communities and other resident areas. So I am supportive of the application, and so I just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chisholm. Councillor O'Meara and Councillor Chisholm, can I convert those statements into one of you moving and the other seconding?
Yes, Your Worship, that's fine.
Thank you, both of you. Councillor Elgar, your turn.
Thank you, through Member Burton. My concern is, what can we do as council regarding the lux factor of headlights into people's houses? That to me is a huge issue, could be and will be, if we don't ensure grading. And what I'm hearing is we have no control. I just want to confirm, do we have any control at all? Or is there anything that that can be done to ensure we have a zero lux factor shining into people's windows, which can be very concerning for residents?
Councillor, I think that's a question for Ms. Chandra or Mr. Charles. And Mr. Charles is rising to the challenge.
Thank you, Mayor Burton, and through you. Councillors, through our site plan requirements, we do have, as Mr. Westerhoff was saying, a zero cutoff requirement at the property line. So that is any light which is generated on the site is required to be cut off at the property line. And that is incorporating grading issues, that's incorporating the building design, that's looking at the photometrics of the site. We do have professionals who are required to submit a photometric plan that we are then able to review and rely on through a certification process. Where it comes to cars, it's no different than street lights. There is other light, ambient light, which does affect all of us as anyone is using the public realm, and lights that are affecting to homeowners regardless of where they are. And again, that's whether it's from car traffic, it's whether from streetlights, et cetera. So you can see the light, but it's whether or not it's actually coming into the house. And it's not something that we are able to control in terms of car lights going into it. So we will do everything that we can through the site plan process to ensure that there is zero cutoff at the property in terms of the light that gets generated on the site.
I thank for the answer. I understand the streetlights. It's what because I don't think the streetlights shine directly into the windows. So that's my only concern. So appreciate the answer. What our restrictions are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. As you may recall, Councillor Elgar, we worked together in the day to create the very strict cutoff of light at the property from lights on buildings and light standards on the property. And we learned at the time that we were unable to do the same thing about cars. And so we've relied on staff through the years to do the best they can at site plan to encourage or discourage, if you like, to discourage lights in windows and encourage other directions for that. Councillor Shia.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. I just want ask the record vote.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you.
So I'd like to check a few things that I heard with staff. I heard that the Shoppers is as of right, and rejecting this tonight will not stop the Shoppers. I heard that I believe I heard that the amount of units of housing is less than they're entitled to, that they had chosen for market reasons to have fewer. And I won't repeat the things I heard about the traffic in and out and the truck, because I thought that was very clear. But for these 2 points about the Shoppers being, you're not stopping the Shoppers by defeating this, and the housing, the amount of housing. The other issue, the live issue, is how much housing. Is this the maximum possible housing? Is this less than possible? Could you clarify that?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. That is correct. The one-story interim commercial building, that is permitted as of right today. By turning this application down and refusing it, it's not going to prevent any forward progress on the site plan application that has already been submitted. With respect to the level of intensification, this site can accommodate more basically residential dwelling units than are being proposed today through this application.
Thank you very much. I didn't want to make a mistake, but it's for those 2 reasons that I will be supporting the motion. Councillors, any other speakers, or shall I ask the clerk to call the recorded vote? Councillor Haslett-Thiel.
I just would like to get some clarification on what you just were told. So the FSI is to be 2.5. It's only 3 with phase 4, correct? So I'm not understanding how you're telling me that the amount of housing is less.
Yes, through you, Mayor. The FSI increases beyond 2.5 as what's in the bylaw today through this application. FSI is not directly tied to the number of units, but rather the building size on the subject property. So more units could be provided, more residential dwelling units, without the need to increase the FSI, but the increase in FSI makes those units that are being provided more livable, which I think is something that we heard from the resident concerns today.
Thank you for that.
All right. Madam Clerk, would you call the vote?
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Councillor O'Meara?
Yes.
Councillor McNeese?
No.
Councillor Duddick?
Yes.
Councillor Chisholm?
Yes.
Councillor Haslett-Thiel?
No.
Councillor Giddings?
Yes.
Councillor Elgar?
No.
Councillor Longo?
Yes.
Mayor Burton?
Yes.
Councillor Knoll?
Yes.
Councillor Grant?
Yes.
Councillor Adams?
Yes.
Councillor Lischina?
Yes.
Councillor Nanda?
No.
Councillor Shi.
No.
Carries.
The measure carries. Thank you, everybody, for the close scrutiny that we gave this item. We now turn to the supplementary report for the 2026-2030 Municipal Election Compliance Audit Committee, item 5.2. Are there questions from council? Councillor Nanda?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Burton. I did have some questions on this. Coming back, it seems like there's still more work that needs to be done. I had a few questions. One was under governance tool for staff. Where does it talk about where all minutes will be published? Are all minutes, when there's a compliance audit committee meeting, is all the meetings supposed to be public and minutes put on our site?
Through you, Mayor Burton, to the councillor. The town solicitor is available to answer any questions that you have on this item.
Solicitor Carr, thank you.
Yes. Good evening. Through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you for the question. I would look to the deputy clerk to supplement my answer, but my initial response is the matter of minutes would be something that would be addressed through the development of the administrative practices and procedures that are part of the process of the next step.
You're up, I guess.
Yep, no, absolutely. I agree with what Solicitor Carr said. And also to note, the administrative practices and procedures will be posted on the website prior to recruitment starting.
Okay, so again, just for clarification, all meetings that happen with the Compliance Audit Committee are supposed to be public meetings, and minutes are supposed to be had for each of those meetings, if they ever do meet?
Through you, Mayor Burton, if the committee is meeting on an application that has been filed pursuant to the provisions of the Municipal Elections Act, then yes, those meetings of the committee are in public, dealing with applications under the Municipal Elections Act. And when those meetings are conducted, the minutes are available on the, they're available to the public.
Okay. And is there an allocation of legal funds that is made for the lawyers for the Compliance Audit Committee?
There's not an through you, Mayor Burton, there's not an allocation through the town's budget process. The town is obligated under the provisions of the Municipal Elections Act to cover the costs of the committee, all costs, including its legal costs. There's no discretion on the part of any municipality. They're all required to cover the costs of the committee under the provisions of the Act.
And is that done by taxpayers?
Yes, the costs of the committee are the responsibility of the municipality.
Okay. And just in terms of how we're going to define, or how it's being defined right now in the reference, in other municipalities such as Mississauga, they're considered a local board, but we're suggesting that this would be quasi-judicial. Like, what is the difference if this is all under the province? How come there's different definitions of what this board is supposed to be?
Well, through you, Mayor Burton, I would dispute that characterization. We also have external counsel, Mr. Stéphane Imard Chabot, who could assist as well. But under the legislation, And through many rulings of the courts, it's been confirmed that compliance audit committees are not local boards. They're not committees of council. They are arm's length, independent, quasi-judicial bodies.
Okay, so I saw it under Peel Region, under Mississauga. So are they incorrect for having that under their terms of reference?
I can't answer any differently, Councillor, that they are not, in law, a local board or a tribunal or a committee of council anywhere in the province.
Okay. And then where is the mechanism for removal if there is a conflict of interest with a member of the board or a committee?
Again, through you, Mayor Burton, and I would invite the deputy clerk or external counsel to supplement my answer. The details of that are not before you this evening, but they will be developed through the development of the administrative practices and procedures through the clerk's office.
Okay, so did we maybe bring this back prematurely? Because it just feels like all the terms still don't seem to be there to reflect what we may want to see in a committee. I'm suggesting whether we should have another deferral, like to come, because it just feels like, based on the report that was put before us, and just that there was like just a member's oath that was added to this, but really there was no real change in the terms of reference.
Well, Councillor, who's your question directed to?
Well, I'm not sure staff, or I'm not sure if we should be asking for a deferral again.
Mayor Burton, I don't know if it's appropriate. My name is Stéphane Marchabot, and I've been external counsel supporting the internal legal team at Oakville on this matter. If I may make a quick comment, the key thing for members of council to remember is that when the Ontario legislature changed the Act in 2009, it made a very clear decision that these committees would operate at arm's length from politicians. It made that decision by removing the role of council in oversight. And as the Court of Appeal has confirmed, that's what Solicitor Carr was referring to, the functioning of a compliance audit committee, like every other independent quasi-judicial body in the province, is governed by principles of administrative law, and the oversight is on the courts. If an elector or a candidate or a third party believes that a member of a compliance audit committee has a bias or anything, conflict of interest, the recourse is to file an application for judicial review. It is not, with respect, it is not for councils in Ontario to police the compliance audit committees. There is no power in the Elections Act to provide for a process for removal. Once these members are appointed through an arm's length process, they sit essentially like members of dozens of other tribunals and judges independently, and their decisions are subject to fairly strict rules, but the oversight is with the courts, not with politicians.
Thank you very much for that information. Councillor Nanda?
Sorry, so then just my question would then be just in choosing, because we're giving these terms of references for our clerk's office or for all the municipality in the region to pick these committee members, but how do we know that they wouldn't have a conflict? And according to what Mr. Chabot said, if there was to be found, what could the clerks really do if they were to find that there is a conflict? Then what could they do after the fact?
Councillor, the essential point I heard from Mr. Aymar Chabot is that it's not for council to decide that.
Okay. Okay, I'll hold for now. Thank you.
There is a lineup. Councillor Hazlett-Thiel, your turn.
Thank you. Thank you very much for some of the edits in this supplementary. I do appreciate it, and I particularly appreciate that you've come up with a member's oath of office. I did want to call out, because it confused me a bit, in 6D in the oath, it says, by assisting the campaign of any candidate, but I don't see those words in the other components that talk about eligible or ineligible. So I know that you're incredibly meticulous, and I'm not, I think that those words probably gave comfort to some individuals, maybe not others, but 6D doesn't line up with what is in the terms of reference, I think. And so if I could just draw your attention to it, if that could be considered as being, if we could get that clarification. My second question is, I appreciate now hearing that the administrative details will be posted, so that's comforting and I think very important. But following that, once you have chosen your committee, will that committee's names be posted on the election website for Oakville?
Through you, Mayor Burton, to the councillor, yes, they will be posted online on the website.
Okay, so should somebody have a concern, it will be evident who's on the committee by the time we got to anything where somebody might question the financial whatever people are doing. Okay, I just want to make sure I've asked you all the ones that I had concerns with publication. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Councillor Hazlett-Thiel, Councillor Elgar is next. And before, Alan, before you start, Councillor Hazlett-Thiel, I appreciate the questions that you asked, and they gave me comfort on the matter as well. So thank you for those. Councillor Elgar.
Thank you. Through Member Burton, just trying to understand, are there quorum requirements specified for the decision making? Is there a quorum or no quorum? I'm just trying to understand the wording.
Through you, Mayor Burton, to the councillor, there is a quorum, a minimum of 3 members.
I appreciate that. And it's no different than what I said earlier, based on the Ontario Legislature 2009 legislation. We're really basically a rubber stamp. And I think the external staff there was Mr. Chabot, the external legal. He pointed it out. Like, it's really, we should just approve it. We have no control over this. So I thank you very much, and I'll be pleased to move it based on what he told me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Let me, before we go to Councillor Adams, can I get a seconder for that motion? Councillor Longo, thank you. Councillor Adams, you're up.
Thanks very much. First, thank you to staff who made the changes to create the oath of office and incorporate some of the discussion that we had at the last meeting. I just had one question of clarification, and I thank you for the answers to some of my colleagues, which covered off some of the concerns or questions I had already. I just wanted to ask about the HR process with respect to applicants to be a member on this committee. Is it similar to the way in which we name members to other committees for the town or to, say, the library board or on the provincial side, the way they might make appointments of citizens to a police board, wherein an application comes from somebody, but nobody outside of the receiving side of that knows who applied, nor what their qualifications might be. And it's only after they make the appointment that the names are released publicly. And when that happens, there's no listing of all the qualifications of that individual. There's no checklist that says this person met this criteria and that criteria. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, so we're being consistent in terms of the process, the HR process of what's happening here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. The motion is moved and seconded, and I see no more hands. Is there any objection to the motion? Councillor Nanda, it's close, but the motion carries. Thank you, everybody. It's 8 o'clock. Would council has two more meaty items. Would council like a short break before we resume? I'm going to say yes, you do, and we'll be back at 8:15.
Recording stopped.
right. Okay, council, we're back in order, and the next item up is 7.1, the public meeting and recommendation report for the zoning bylaw amendment application for East and West, which is pinpointed at 4243 6th line. This is a public hearing item, and I'm going to call on Delia McPhail, MCIP RPP planner, for a presentation. Ms. McPhail, we are all ears. You have our attention.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. A zoning bylaw amendment application has been submitted by GHD Limited on behalf of their client, East and West Incorporated. The proposal is to amend the zoning bylaw to allow for the development of employment uses on the lands located at 4243 6th line. For reasons more clearly identified in the staff report, staff are recommending the approval of this application. The report may be found as item 7.1 on tonight's agenda, and it begins on page 48 of the council package. This meeting serves as both the statutory public meeting and recommendation meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment, to present the proposal to the public and council, and for staff to present a recommendation for council to make a decision on the application. The property is known municipally as 4243 6th line, and it is located on the east side of 6th line, south of the 407. The property traverses the municipal boundary, so a portion of the property, identified by the arrow, is within the town of Milton and is not subject to this application. Surrounding the lands include the future Highway 407 transitway to the north, a stormwater management facility, and vacant employment lands with an approved site plan to the east, vacant employment land to the south with a site plan currently under review, and vacant employment lands to the west. The subject lands are approximately 3.89 hectares in size and have 20 meters of frontage along 6th Line Road. 6th Line. The remaining portion of the property along 6th Line abuts lands owned by the Ministry of Transportation that are intended to be incorporated into a future transitway associated with the 407. The subject lands contain an existing heritage building and telecommunications tower, with the remainder actively being used for agricultural crops. The purpose of the application is to establish a land use which implements the North Oakville East Secondary Plan. The applicant proposes the construction of industrial buildings on the property, and the concept plan that you see is provided for information purposes. Building location, the reuse of the existing heritage building, site access, and landscaping will be determined through the site plan process. The subject lands are designated urban area within the region of Halton official plan. The urban area is planned to accommodate the distribution of population and employment growth for the region. The range of permitted uses in the urban area will be in accordance with the town's official plan and zoning bylaw. The subject lands are located within the employment area, which is intended to provide for a range of employment uses to meet the town's long-term employment needs. The subject lands are designated employment district on figure NOE2 land use plan. And the vision of the North Oakville East secondary plan includes the establishment of a business park along Highway 407 to provide a range of employment opportunities for Oakville residents. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will implement the North Oakville East secondary plan, contribute to the town's employment targets, and help support the creation of a community where people can live and work. The property is currently zoned future development, which only permits existing buildings and structures, as well as conservation measures and use is not subject to zoning bylaws under provincial or federal legislation. The applicant is proposing to change the zoning to the general employment zone to permit a range of employment uses that align with the provincial definition of area of employment, which includes warehousing, storage, manufacturing and assembly, as well as limited office and retail uses. This zone will ensure the principal use of the lands remains for employment uses. An H holding provision has been added to the implementing zoning to require the approval of a functional servicing report prior to the development of the lands, as indicated on Appendix A, page 70 of the council package. In conclusion, Mayor Burton, staff put forth the following recommendation for council's consideration as shown on this slide. It is staff's opinion that the application should be approved as it is consistent with the provincial policy statement, provincial planning statement, and implements the existing and emerging employment policies for the town. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McPhail. Councillor Nanda may have a question for you. Councillor Nanda.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you so much for the presentation. Just some clarifying questions. Given that the site's proximity is only 20 meters from the frontage of 6th line, do you expect that there'll be issues with truck access or emergency vehicle access?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, because there's only 20 meters of direct frontage on the right-of-way, that is the only location where access can be provided. The applicant may decide to engage in conversations with the Ministry of Transportation, which owns the other part, but at present, it's restricted only to those 20 meters.
So you identified that as a concern. So how are you looking at proposing that it not become a concern for later?
Yeah. Through the mayor to the councillor, the proposed concept plan that was submitted with the application indicates 2 separate accesses. And so that's why staff had identified that those 2 access points were a concern.
Okay, and then that's going to be done through site plan to fix the issues or resolve the issues?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, if the Ministry of Transportation is willing to give up some land for a second access, that is incumbent upon the ministry. From what I understand, based on the elevation of the roadway as it goes as an overpass to the 407, that may be unlikely.
So then what are we going to do if that doesn't happen? How is that going to become an issue then?
Through the mayor to the councillor, they would be restricted to the 1 access on the southerly portion of the site.
And will there be enough room for the trucks to come in and out?
Through the mayor to the councillor, there would be a transportation impact study that's to be resolved, resolving any issues with truck movements through the site plan process.
Okay. And you can't at this time anticipate the volume of truck or what the developer expects as truck traffic?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the proposal has considered certain uses, the industrial buildings, and that concept had a transportation impact study. It's possible that the concept plan will change. That is our anticipation, or we do anticipate that. So the uses will be evaluated under a new TIS or a revised TIS.
Okay. And to this site, where are the closest residents to this site?
Through the mayor to the councillor, they would be south of Loyalist Trail.
Okay, so this is
further south than William Holton Parkway.
Okay, so all the future developments around here are all employment?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Nanda. That I thought was very helpful in illuminating. Councillor Haslett-Thiel.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Can you just confirm for me that the there's clarity around not being able to quay the trucks on 6th line? So warehousing has loading and unloading times depending on what their products, et cetera. I know way too much more about warehouses now after a term on council. Can you confirm that there's no quaying allowed on 6th line for the property, and that their turnaround addresses that ability to have their trucks on site, not on 6th line?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the truck movements would have to provide in and forward, in and out of the site, so any maneuvering needs to be wholly contained within the lands. In terms of the queuing, entering into the site, that would be reviewed again through a transportation impact study.
Okay. So it, I understand why they want to do it there, and I appreciate Councillor Nanda's questions around some of the other areas, but I would hope that we are going to explore ensuring that they're building out the property such that we don't see quaying on 6th Line.
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes. That will, the appropriate movements at the roundabout and including 6th Line will be of interest to staff and region as well, as it is, the roundabout is a regional road.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect to the sliver of land that actually is in the in Milton, how does that impact the applicant? I mean, you say it's not subject to the application, but how is that addressed from a legal perspective? It's one contiguous parcel, I assume.
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, it's one continuous parcel. We cannot zone lands that are not within our jurisdiction. So through the site plan process, we would ensure that any lands within the town of Milton would be landscaping only. There wouldn't be any facilities like parking or building. It would simply be green space.
Do we coordinate that with Milton to ensure that that becomes the actual plan, or is it subject to the applicant's desire to pursue something alternatively?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, the town of Milton has been engaged through this process. They do have an interest in being consulted with for the site plan. If for some reason the applicant decides they would like to do something within the town of Milton, then they would need to go to the town of Milton like they have to the town of Oakville and apply for a rezoning application to permit that.
Okay. Now, I've never heard of that before, where it's, one property is split across two municipalities. That's interesting. It'd be interesting to watch. Thank you.
There you go. 26 years and you can still be surprised. Councillor Shia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. So I have noted there, so what's the protection about the ensure the heritage building is restored or is preserved as part of the future development?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the building is a designated heritage property, and so staff would be encouraging the applicant to consider incorporating the reuse of the building as part of the concept. But because it is a listed heritage building, it's designated, I should say, that building should remain, whether in situ where it is currently or relocated to another portion of the site.
Okay. Is that will be the heritage easement agreement and the site plan process provided by council with a significant assurance that building will be protected and not deteriorate during the future construction?
Through Mr. Mayor to the councillor, the heritage easement piece, if there's any changes that have to go through that, it would go to the Heritage Committee first, and then through council's adoption of those minutes, then that would be approved, and we would be working then with the applicant to amend the permit as needed to address any changes to the building structural or what have you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Shia. I see no other questions. Can I get a mover and seconder? Councillor Shia and Councillor Nanda, thank you. Any objection? Madam Clerk, there being none, the item is adopted. That brings us to 8.1, the official plan amendment for 4040, 4180, and 4233 Trafalgar Road. We have a couple of presentations. I'd like to start with calling on Brandon Hassan, our senior planner. Welcome, Brandon, and we look forward to the presentation.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Burton, members of council, and members of the public tuning in to tonight's meeting. This presentation is in relation to item 8.1 on tonight's agenda. This official plan amendment application pertains to the proposed development of the Infrastructure Ontario lands located at 4040, 4180, and 4233 Trafalgar Road. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide the staff analysis of the application and provide recommendations to council in order for a decision to be made. As seen on the air photo map, the subject lands are located north and south of William Halton Parkway, south of Highway 407, east and west of Trafalgar Road. As seen on the screen, the subject lands are outlined in red on the North Oakville East Community Structure Map. I'd like to draw your attention to the yellow numbers 2, 3, and 4 along Trafalgar Road, noting the subject lands are located within the Trafalgar Urban Core Area 1, or TUC1 land use designation. Again, the subject lands are outlined in red on the North Oakville Master Plan, where you can see the aqua color represents the TUC and the yellow represents employment areas. It should be noted that only policies pertaining to the TUC are being modified through this application, and there are no changes proposed to the existing employment area policies. This is a map of the North Oakville zoning bylaw, which is not being amended through this application. A zoning bylaw amendment will be required in the future to develop the subject lands with buildings and other site-specific elements, which will be open to further input and council feedback at that time. On the screen now is the subject of the application, being an official plan amendment to the North Oakville East Secondary Plan, which will introduce residential land uses in the TUC1 land use designation with greater building heights ranging from 12 to 30 stories within 100 meters of Trafalgar Road, aligned with the former Planning Act and official plan bonusing tools. Staff have worked closely with the applicant to structure the OPA in general alignment with the recent OLT order for the Argo lands to the southeast, where you can see on the screen that the community park lands were acquired through that settlement. So it's the small green square in the bottom corner of the circle labeled CP. Through this application, 2 elementary school symbols are being added to the NOE2 land use plan east and west of Trafalgar Road, which are subject to change without further amendment to the plan, to be determined through consultation with the school boards during future zoning bylaw and plan of subdivision applications. Overall, this application aims to create a complete community by permitting residential land uses in the TUC1 land use designation consistent with the TUC 2, 3, and 4 areas, including policies taken from the town's commercial and employment area review studies, introducing 2 new school sites, enhanced policies for open space coordination with the town, and land use compatibility. On the screen is a list of the matters to be addressed through the application review process, which are detailed in the staff report. And in conclusion, staff put forth the following recommendations as shown for council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hassan. You have a question from Councillor Elger. Councillor Elger.
Thank you. Through Mayor Burton, thank you very much for the presentation. I raise a red flag on this because it's happened to me in Ward 4, and it has to do with a location called Saw Wet, where there was supposedly could be a school. What has happened? We have hundreds and hundreds of families in that location. There will never be a school built in that location. The poor children will be bused forever. Now, I see here the school site, but what I notice you've got written, there is no guarantee a school site will actually be built. Is there anything we can do going forward that there will be a school site? Because it's a huge concern when families moved in, and it's a big missing link that happened in Sawet, which of course I fought to the nth degree, but I lost in a recorded vote. Is there anything we can do going forward to prevent this from happening again to residents who try to raise their families in Oakville?
Through Mayor Burton, unfortunately I didn't work on the Sawwet development, but I am familiar with that location. I believe in the zoning bylaw that was passed for that property, there was a time limit for the school to come forward and acquire that property, or else it would default to the developer. So I don't believe the school board acted on that, and that's why that property was developed. In this application, both school boards have advised that they do require school sites to facilitate the proposed residential land uses, so that's why we're adding the symbols. But what I had mentioned about there not being school sites in those exact locations are that they'll be subject to change based on the block plans and zoning bylaws that come forward in the future so that we can determine exactly where those schools will go. So right now, they're just floating symbols on the map, but they will be located appropriately when we have more detailed design plans.
So I like what I just heard. So we don't have a timeline so the developer can line his pockets with all kinds of more housing. We don't have a timeline on that, correct, at this point?
Through you, Mayor Burton, unfortunately, I'm not sure what the applicant's timelines are for phasing, but at the end of the day, through the passing of this OPA, the two school symbols will require the developer to provide school sites because they will be in the official plan.
I like what I'm hearing. As long as there's no timeline, the school board has to act by a certain time. So I thank you very much for that, because that is really come back to bite. It should come back to bite all members of council and everyone, but it didn't. So I live with it. I thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hazat-Thiel.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton, for the presentation. A couple just in questions in the bylaw itself. So I appreciate hearing what Councillor Algar has said about the schools and the adjoining parks that would go with potentially the schools. I had a resident actually raise with me earlier today about the need for additional playing fields. As you well know, limited space in the south to do that. Do you feel like that's covered comprehensively in this amendment to ensure we not only have community parks, but we have potential playing fields that we'll need?
Through Mayor Burton, if we can pull up the presentation again and go to this line with OPA 340, the schedule. So as you can see on the schedule here, as I had mentioned, the Argo settlement resulted in the community parklands located at the northeast corner of Burnham, Thorpe, and Trafalgar. So that will be a full-fledged town facility to my knowledge. As far as coordinating playing fields with the school boards, I discussed the official plan policies with our park staff, and they included their language in the OPA. I'm not sure to what extent playing fields may be considered. Those will take up a lot of real estate, so depending on how the school board structures their buildings, whether they're a standard 2 to 3 story building or they're included in a podium of a building, that's to be discussed. But playing fields would have to be discussed with the school boards and parks jointly.
And is that a conversation that can happen in the future? It's not precluded from happening as a result of an approval tonight?
Yeah, no, through Mayor Burton, the policies are in there to coordinate those conversations through the plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment applications.
Okay, thanks very much, Brandon. My other question is on the section I, land use compatibility. There's an A, B, and C, and when I read B, it talks about development within 300 meters of the employment areas shall avoid or mitigate potential impacts. But then when I go to C, it then follows up by saying, notwithstanding any land use designation permitting otherwise to protect the operational and economic viability of existing or planned major facilities, a new sensitive land use shall not be permitted within the minimum separation distance. So are we sticking with D6 guidelines in that regard?
Through Mayor Burton, yes, so that'd be correct. So this language was taken directly out of the PPS 2024. So previously, the provincial policy statement put the onus on employment lands to buffer and mitigate from residential land uses. That's been kind of flipped now. As you are reading in the policies, the province is really trying to promote the economic viability of employment lands. So the residential land uses need to prove that they aren't encumbering the employment lands. So that's what we've tried to protect for in these OPA policies, further to the PPS and our employment areas review.
But we're also making sure that they're compatible with the residential neighborhoods that would be there.
Yes, correct. So that would be policy E as far as minimum setbacks and complying with the provincial D6 guidelines. It's a little bit further down on page 12.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nanda.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you so much, Brandon, for the presentation, and I appreciate my council colleagues' comments, especially about schools and parks, because they know how we feel about those. And so just going to what my colleague was just talking about, the separation. So we've seen that in the past, we've had separations, but on local roads. Are we ensuring that that's not going to happen up there between residential and employment, that the separation is not just going to be a local road?
Yes, through Mayor Burton. So we're very well of lessons learned up in North Oakville, and I'm familiar with the Loyalist Trail example that we may be all thinking about. So the draft plan of subdivision that comes in and the implementing zoning bylaw will look at ways to mitigate and create more spatial separation between the land uses. So that'll come at a future state and time. The applicant's concept plans were just general depictions of what could happen on the subject lands, but we will get into the finer grain details through the next set of applications in the future.
So we could look at more like separation of between like arterial road, like a Burnhamthorpe type road where employment's on one side, and then we'd be looking at buffering, how you buffer those between the two separations of the residentials and employment?
Yeah, through Mayor Burton, we can look at where the roads are located, how the lotting fabric is set up, and any berming or landscaping that could enhance mitigating those impacts between the sensitive land uses and employment lands.
Okay. And just with, you were discussing the schools earlier, so generally we're seeing in our areas, there is usually a park that is, on the same land as schools. Are you saying here that that may not necessarily be the case, that they won't be connected?
Through Mayor Burton, I'm trying to find the policy specifically about coordination, but it will depend on what the school boards say they need in terms of land mass. They may need a standard couple-acre site for the schools that they're proposing. I know they're going through exercises on there and to try and determine if through intensification they can accommodate their facilities within podiums of mixed-use buildings. It's a challenge for them right now, so they may be looking at the standard way that they operate and provide for schools, but there are policies that provide for the coordination of their sites and either town parkland or that's just their own parkland to serve the community.
Okay, and do we have in our policies enough terms for parks within the communities?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Burton, I reviewed these policies specifically with park staff, and they're satisfied with them. And I believe some of them were also taken out of the Nayagawa Urban Core OLT order. So it's reflected in what the town has most recently been adopting.
Okay. And just a question on servicing allocation. So we have not yet secured that, have we, from the region?
Through Mayor Burton, no, I don't believe the applicant has participated in the most recent and current allocation program, but I did review the last set of policies with the region being infrastructure, and they've signed off on all of these, so I wouldn't have brought this forward without their blessing.
Okay, so there's no issue with this OPA without servicing allocation?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nanda. Council, I sense that you're ready to make a decision. The consultant for the applicant is here, but let me see if I can get a mover and seconder for the recommendation. Councillor Shi and Councillor Nanda, thank you. Let me ask Ms. Ferrugia and Ms. Knoll, are you content at this point? I can't hear you.
I mean, I could take the opportunity to present. I know there's some questions about co-location and servicing.
Be my guest.
I had here in my notes about good evening, but I might have to say good night. So good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Elizabeth Ferrugia, Senior Planner of GSP Group. And with me here today is Sarah Knoll, our Vice President, and the landowner representative from Infrastructure Ontario, Michael Coakley. We're here to speak on the OPA that is before you tonight for decision, and you've heard a lot of the background and the information from Brandon already. I'd like to kind of state on the record in terms of we've also reviewed the staff report and we support staff's recommendation to approve the application. Maybe one thing I'll just note is that, or maybe I'll reiterate, is this application is only for that policy level, providing that framework for things like we've already discussed about schools, co-location, servicing infrastructure, land use compatibility. And that is to provide a guiding policy framework for future development and future ownership. No development or detailed designs are being approved for construction today. If we could go to the next slide, please. So here you've already heard in terms of our subject lands, it's within the TUC1, and that is part of that greater system of 2, 3, and 4. Something that I'll just kind of really hone in on from Brandon's presentation is in terms of the Navy area, that's about 29 hectares, and that's just what our policy framework is focused on in terms of introducing residential permissions and creating those appropriate buffers to the employment uses. We could turn to the next slide, please. I think this might be kind of a key slide for some of the questions I've heard tonight. Just reiterating again, this is at the official plan level. I heard some questions about the schools, co-location. So when this did go through its resubmission, we did get specific comments from both the public and the Catholic School Board. And they did specifically request 2 elementary schools, and they also made notes in their comments about co-location, which we've added a specific policy for. It's under the public realm policies. Also with co-location, they did make a note that if that is achievable, that they would reduce their own school land requirements and negotiate with the parks staff and work with them to be able to implement that within the specific zoning bylaw amendments, the draft plan of subdivision, and the specific block plans. The other thing I kind of heard tonight is in terms of the employment areas, understanding that there's been those recent studies with the employment areas review and the commercial area study. We did coordinate with staff. We did update the policy framework so that it's updated to the modern employment and commercial and retail standards and needs and vision. And then just an extract there is a sense of the land use compatibility policies, not only talking about specific warning clauses, but also looking at buffering. So things like Brandon's mentioned already earlier, landscaping, siting buildings a certain way, and that policy framework we're proposing today is really meant to ensure that kind of buffering is happening. Next slide, please. So this is another snapshot of that North Oakville East secondary plan, but it's the specific conceptual road network. So we put it here because we kind of understand and kind of saw tonight a bit of that focused on the road network and separations, and just reiterating again that this proposed policy we're bringing forth to you tonight is updating those standards, making sure that when residential permissions coming in, that future detailed block plans, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision is looking at those buffers at a detailed level, and could look at other traffic mitigations such as traffic calming, truck routes, restrictions, and all of the like. I think it's the last slide, next slide. So with that, on my presentation, I know I took a chance by coming and delegating up here, but happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
You earned a question, at least one from Councillor Knoll, and we'll see how warmed up we get after that. Councillor Knoll.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate you insisting on doing that. I would like to know a little bit more about your intentions around compatibility between the commercial and the employment, I should say, and the residential areas. I know you talked about some landscaping and things like that, but are there any other significant, and I know this is mostly worked out in a site plan process later on, but do you have any thoughts in advance on how you would create an environment so that there's appropriate compatibility built in early, so that assuming that the residential applications will come in first, which usually seems to be the way, so that we're not fighting later on about backup beepers and compatibility and traffic issues. Is there anything you can do to lay in some compatibility opportunities early?
Right, through the mayor, directed to the councillor. So we did kind of get that started early in terms of already this proposed OPA. We've updated a lot of the land use compatibility policies and aligned it with that Argos settlement. So we're talking about things like siting, for example, early on, and not only saying you could establish these principle of uses, but done at least in this framework today. So, you know, and that really provides that guidance and direction then at the zoning and site plan to say, depending on what you're proposing, is it materially aligned with this proposed official plan framework?
Is there any intention into manage your own phasing of this property long-term, your client's phasing of this property long-term in terms of what comes first, the chicken or the egg, or the commercial or the residential, or is there any thoughts given to that?
Through the mayor and towards the councillor, very broadly at this official plan level, we looked at phasing kind of counterclockwise, just from the bottom all the way then to the northeast, and part of that was considering that employment piece. So like at this stage, that was the broader phasing that we looked at. But if we're talking about site-specific level phasing, that would have to be fleshed out at the ZBA and site plan, right?
I mean, we're all concerned about wanting to maintain as much commercially viable land and with limited impediments as possible for future growth of our employment base. So that's my concern there.
Right.
So any considerations to that would be very useful in my mind.
Right.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nanda.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you so much for the presentation. So maybe you could clarify a couple of the questions that I had asked Brandon. Are you looking at servicing allocation like soon or in the next allotment that comes up?
I think we have our Infrastructure Ontario representative here that could speak to the broader development plans, but at this point, we haven't looked at the allocation program. We thought it was best that be reserved for the future ZBA draft plan of subdivision once they have their detailed units, and then you could apply for the program.
Okay, and just going into my colleague's question again, would you be able to ensure that separation between residential and employment would not ever be on local roads? It would either be regional or it would be arterial roads? Like, is there anything that can be put into the terms or the policy to ensure that a separation is not just a local road?
Right, so through the mayor and to the councillor, at this time, at least the land use compatibility policies that we have there and a bit of that network policy that we've established can guide those, like they provide those parameters for those separations. Like separation could be a lot more detailed and clarified once you have the detailed site plan, the draft plan of subdivision, the zoning amendment, and the concept plans, and that's when you would know, I'm assuming through detailed work with transportation staff and their TISs to name what the local separation is, or the regional separation, the arterial separation, and other things related to like route mitigations.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And I'll confine it to table. Is there a mover and seconder for this? Oh, yeah, I did. Thank you. Is there any objection then? Councillor McNeice, I see your hand. Oh, okay. Madam Clerk, there's no objection. The recommendation is adopted. Thank you, everybody. That completes the work of our meeting today. As long as we linger for a moment for the consideration and reading of the bylaws. Councillor Elgar, are you giving me a motion for consideration and reading of the bylaws?
Mayor Burton, I was wondering about new business. I guess
I'll back up and gladly hear your new business.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mayor Burton. It's not my understanding the Chief of Staff mentioned that Nick Nannis, we did a survey this spring, and I'm just wondering when that report would be coming forward to members of council.
Soon, very soon.
Very soon? Okay, I appreciate that. And one other thing, and the timeline is so short, This afternoon, I learned that the Ontario and Canada open application for new development charge reduction program for 8.8 billion or whatever, but the deadline is June 19. And it's 2026, not 2029. Is there, like, I don't know what we can do, but since the staff report recently said, like, we're a little bit shy of like 74 million on development charges, that if the developers and the new homeowners don't pay, it's the taxpayers. We all know that. So what do you need from council to give staff to make sure they've got the money to get the job done, to apply for what we can? I kind of know it's a report we need or whatever, but we don't have time for a report when it's July 19th is the cutoff date for this. It's scary.
If your question's done, my answer's ready.
Perfect. I want to hear it.
We do not need anything from council for this. And when you discover that in order to participate in this program, we have to cut our DCs by 30 to 50%, and we only get back 90% of the cut, we have a 10% contribution into it. We're way ahead if we do not participate on a financial basis. So, and then I guess the other bit that I'll tell you is it's a voluntary program, and you can only participate if your application is accepted, and your application is judged on how much you're cutting your DCs. And the application forms are not yet available. Counselor, if I've just made you happy, I am delighted, because I love to make you happy.
Thank you very much. I'm just concerned about the $74 million in the staff report we recently received that we're a little shy on, that we haven't got.
There is, Counselor, no sign of any desire to give us any of that money back.
Wow. Thank you, Mayor Burton. I'm sorry to hear that, but thank you.
At your service, sir. Could I have a mover and seconder for consideration of the and as a matter of fact, Councillor Unger, are you happy enough to give me the motion for the bylaws?
Sure.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Grant, thank you. Any objection? Madam Clerk, there being none, and the bylaws as listed in the agenda are considered read and passed. Our work is done. It's been terrific working with you, and I gather that we get to do that again real soon now, so I'm looking forward to seeing you. Good night.